Grab a cup of tea, a cozy warm blanket, and settle in for the biggest and best Thanksgiving marathon. Today, I'm sharing over 20 Thanksgiving recipes that will make your day extra special. This first recipe is for, yes, cocktail meatballs. Now, start with a bag of frozen meatballs. Obviously, make your favorite meatballs if you want to go that route, but I do find that if you're comparing like a pound of ground beef and a pound of cocktail meatballs frozen, it actually ends up pretty close sometimes. So look for those deals, look for those sales, and get those frozen when you can, because they're a great thing to keep in the freezer to throw out there at the last minute. Another great thing about this recipe is it's a 3-ingredient recipe, much like the last recipe. We have chili sauce, or you can use cocktail sauce, or you can use barbecue sauce. I'm just using the whole container of chili sauce. I feel like every time that I've done something like this with whatever I find in my fridge, which would be one of those 3 things, pouring the whole thing in there works just fine. And then we're going to add 1 container of grape jelly. Again, I'm not exactly sure on size. I just grab the one that they have at Aldi and put that in there, and it tastes delicious. So I wouldn't be too worried about whatever size you have on hand. I've also tried this with apricot jam and barbecue sauce, and that was phenomenal. So the cool thing about these is you kind of make them whatever you want, but I believe that the traditional style that started in the 1960s was the grape jelly and the chili sauce. Now, slow cookers were developed in the 1950s, but they really didn't become popular in the US until the 1970s. So during the 60s, many of the recipes were actually for baked meatballs. But now today's version of this, as things have changed and come about, definitely everybody knows this as their perfect, most favorite, even it's called a cult classic Crockpot recipe. So there are families that I know have eaten this for years around the holidays, and it's a must-have. And I'm kind of one of those families. It's absolutely fabulous. You want to cook these in your slow cooker on high for 4 hours, and they turn out absolutely amazing. They are a winner every time. You can't miss. I mean, you can't mess this up. It's awesome. This recipe is for a cheaper pigs in a blanket. So instead of little smokies, we're going to use hot dogs and the crescent rolls. So I'm using my crescent rolls and my hot dogs, and I'm cutting them up into thirds. And then I'm cutting each of the crescent rolls in half. And then I'm rolling it around the hot dogs. Now, in this case, I did do something a little bit different than I normally do. I added some olive oil with garlic, Italian seasoning, parsley, and I mixed that up. Now, these are not things I purchased, so whatever you have in your cabinet, you would 100% do not have to do this. This is kind of an extra thing. It's something I feel like I've seen on TikTok lately. Everyone's like up doing the rolls by adding stuff, and I was like, I should add garlic to these. Like, that would be good. If you have it, I would add Parmesan cheese as well, but you could use butter, you could use olive oil, you can use vegetable oil, you can use whatever you have just to add a little something to your pigs in a blanket, and it will zazz them up a little bit. I'll have to tell you that doing that really did add a little something. I mean, I know they're delicious as is, but wow. So you definitely don't need the mini hot dogs. I thought that these turned out just great. Oh, another idea I had was for using everything bagel seasoning. Like if you had that, I bet that would taste so good as well. So these are such a great appetizer. This one is perfect for any fall event, really. We're gonna be making a pumpkin cheese ball. I like this because it's super budget friendly. You just want 2 to 4 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese. So I'm making a really big one because we're gonna go to a party with a few people and I want there to be lots. But you can very easily just make 1 times the recipe, and that is just gonna be 1 8-ounce block of cream cheese. Then you want 2 cups of shredded cheddar. You do want the orange cheddar because we're gonna use some on the outside too. And you really need to shred this yourself. The store-bought stuff is not gonna do in this case. There are lots of options for this. I'm just gonna use about a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of fresh ground pepper, about 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. But you could very easily do a lot of different things with this. You could do like a jalapeno one with fresh jalapenos or pickled jalapenos. You could do bacon. Bacon cheddar is so good. You could put scallions in here. We're just gonna give this a good mix. You do want to check the flavor on this. Just make sure you put enough garlic powder, salt, whatever you put in there, you want it to, you know, have that flavor. I'm making mine pretty mild because this is a kid's party and I think they're gonna really enjoy the pumpkin, but I don't wanna kind of overwhelm them with too much stuff that they might not like. So this isn't gonna be the cleanest thing in the world, but you wanna make it into a ball so your hands are gonna get sticky. I've got all of my shredded cheese here. My hands are still a mess. You just wanna roll your pumpkin in your shredded cheese. You need to wrap your pumpkin up tightly in plastic wrap. And then the key to this is just the cooking twine. So you wanna wrap it up almost like a present, except we're gonna put some extra spots in here and really just kind of make sure that you get those pumpkin lines in here. Give these all a little pull at the bottom to really make sure that these lines are going to show up. The tighter the better. And then you want to refrigerate this for 4 hours at least. You can do it overnight. And then this was super easy to bring to the party. You just snag that right out of the refrigerator. I brought a cutting board and some crackers with me. I removed the kitchen string and the cling wrap, and I had a beautiful looking pumpkin. But what makes it perfect is you just take the top to a pepper, doesn't matter what color the pepper is, you just take the top off and then you put it on top of the pumpkin, and it has a little stem. So it looks adorable. Everybody was complimenting this. They're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you made that. That's amazing. And I'm like, it's simple. It's something simple, but really, really cute. So I recommend that you give it a shot, and it's not super expensive, and it's just something that makes everybody feel good. And we're going to stay on the cute appetizer train with these mini cheese pies. They look like pumpkin pies. Even better, they come in at 3 or 4 ingredients depending on what type of crackers or how many crackers you use, and it's so simple. You want a triangle shaped cracker and then kind of a square shaped cracker, some cream cheese, and some orange cheddar cheese. You can kind of slice this however thin that you like it. I'm just slicing my, I think it's like an 8-ounce block in half. You could probably do this in thirds too, and the cheese would just be like a little bit thinner. So kind of your choice on how you want it to look. And then I'm just lining up the crackers as kind of a pattern to see how many slices or how many triangles I can get out of my cheese. You can do this whichever way is easier for you and kind of how you work in an artistic manner. So for me, I started off with mini club crackers, but they weren't exactly the right size for what I needed. So I ended up grabbing some wheat thins, and then I cut them in half, and then I cut another one actually into quarters. And I'm gonna kind of glue those on with the cream cheese to the back to make it look like the pie crust. So I just put some cream cheese on my cracker and then just place the cheese right on top so it makes it stick. I also think that a boursin or like a garlic herb cheese would taste delicious on this. So I didn't have that, but if you have that, you can totally use it. And that's just a great like little, like a glue, right? To make it stick. And then just put that same piece on the back of the cheese there. And then I just placed one of the long pieces of the wheat thin and then one of the half pieces of the wheat thin, and it makes this perfect little crust. And does that not look like a pie or what, guys? It's so cute. I'm obsessed. And it's such an easy thing. Like, this is a great last minute. I mean, yes, it takes a little bit of time to kind of put it together, but there's no cooking involved. You don't need to put it in an oven when you get to someone's house. You don't have to worry about timing. It's going to be ready, and it's going to be so cute. Everyone's going to be like, oh my goodness, who made these? Like, they're incredible. And you'll be able to raise your hand and be like, yep, I put those together because I'm awesome. And then right at the top, you just want to use like a little tiny tip to make what looks like whipped cream, and it's really cream cheese. And just make sure your cream cheese is a little bit warm, because I had a little bit of trouble with mine just because it was a little bit cold. But I was able to get them out, and look how adorable. I mean, they're really, really forgiving as far as making it look like whipped cream. This is the perfect winter salad. I love to make a salad because you can make it look so beautiful and it doesn't take too much effort, and it's really healthy and delicious. The key is making your own dressing at home. It just makes it a little bit more special. You want to start with a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, a 1/2 cup of olive oil, or you can use canola oil or whatever your favorite oil is here, a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, 3 tablespoons of white wine vinegar, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and then 2 tablespoons of minced shallot. Now, I did have shallot on hand this day, but a lot of times I don't, and I usually just sub out like a onion powder for that, or even like a minced dried onion, or even if you have like a little bit of red onion. I think that the red onion itself is going to be like, it's a little bit stronger, but it's just a little bit of an onion flavor, so you can kind of make it your own. The great thing about a dressing is you can kind of give it a taste once you mix everything up and see how it tastes and see if you want to add a little bit more of this or that, and it's forgiving. You know, if you need to add more, it's okay. If there's something that's overwhelming, you can usually kind of cover it up with a little bit more oil or mayonnaise. Just give that a good stir and your dressing is going to be finished. For the actual salad, you want a 1/4 cup of thinly sliced red onions, a couple of apples, and I just used what I had, so they were a little bit bruised. Sometimes the kids kind of grab them and then they don't eat them, and you know, it all happens. So I washed them and there are some bruised parts, but that's okay. I just cut off the bruises that were, you know, serious, and everything tasted great. So you don't need like the top-notch ingredients to make something still taste good. You can even bring it someplace, even if you cut off the pieces of it. Just use what you have. Pear would also be delicious in this. You want 1 cup of pecan halves. If you have them, you could always use like a more chopped up pecan, or you could use some walnuts. I think that would be good too. And then the recipe calls for some dried cherries, but I had some dried craisins, and I mean, is that dried cherries? I'm trying to think. It's dried cranberries. So a little different, but whatever type of dried fruit you want to add to that. And then you can add in your sliced red onion and your sliced apple over the top of this, and then you can just drizzle on your salad dressing. I also think that if you had some like crumbled goat cheese or something like that, this would go great in this. But the wonderful thing about a salad is you can mix it up and always use what you have, and it's still going to look beautiful. I think the key to a salad for a meal like this is to place it on a platter. And when you put your salad on a platter, it looks so gorgeous. It's not like in the bowl, all hidden. Everyone can see it and everybody wants a piece. Now, this corn casserole goes viral on Instagram every year, and people complain because they say it's not a casserole, it's cream corn. Whatever it is, it's amazing. Yes, we love Jiffy corn casserole, but this one is also really, really good and simple. I'm just starting with 1 pound of frozen corn, 2/3 a cup of heavy cream, salt and pepper. You can do like a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a sprinkle of ground pepper, and 3 tablespoons of melted butter. You just want to mix that all together in your pan and then bake at 350 degrees for about 35 minutes until thoroughly warm through. You can see mine was delicious and bubbly when it came out, and the whole family was obsessed. My husband was absolutely blown away. He's like, this is the best corn. I think he prefers this to the corn casserole. The kids still say the Jiffy corn casserole is their number one, but it's going to be a tough call when it comes time for Thanksgiving and Christmas, because maybe I'll just have to do both or one on each. I'm not sure. And I served it with roasted chicken and stuffing, so it really was kind of like a Thanksgiving meal. It was really, really fabulous. Ree has the right idea. Next up is another stunningly easy recipe for hot crushed potatoes. You can see how beautiful these potatoes are, but you're going to be shocked at how easy they were to make. You want to start off by bringing a pot of salted water to a boil and then add in as many potatoes as you wish. I just grabbed I think it's like a 1 pound bag of the tiny red creamer potatoes for this. I also think you could use some larger ones if you wanted to. Just might want to cut them up and then kind of smash them down. They won't be exactly the same, but it's a cheaper way to kind of handle the potato situation. You want to cook those until they are fork tender, and then we're going to drizzle a sheet pan with some olive oil and place our potatoes right on top. Now you want to mash your potatoes down gently with a potato masher, and then you want to push the excess kind of back out on top of the potato, and then rotate 90 degrees and do that again. So you're kind of mashing it twice, and it really kind of pops open the potato and makes kind of, I don't know, like little like Himalayas, like iceberg type things on it. But it really turns out fabulous because all those little pieces crisp up. and it makes something really unique. And then once those are all mashed, you want to drizzle the tops of each of the potatoes with more olive oil, and then we're going to sprinkle those with kosher salt, black pepper, fresh chopped rosemary, or you can have dried if you have it. You can use chives, you can use thyme, you can use whatever herb you have available, and then a shake of grated Parmesan cheese. You want to bake those at 450 degrees for about 25 minutes until they are golden brown and sizzling, and you are going to see the results. They are going to be so crispy and so yummy. And I think you could take this a step further and really put any type of seasoning that you like or you want on these. It's the method of roasting these potatoes that makes them so amazing. I feel like you could get these ready on a sheet pan ahead of time, put them in the refrigerator, and then roast them when comes time for dinner. You place these on a platter when you're serving family and friends, and they are going to look absolutely magnificent. They are such a beauty. Like I said, my husband was obsessed with these, and I'm so excited to make them again someday. Next up is roasted carrots with vinaigrette, and I've never had anything like this, but my mouth is just watering thinking about it. It was so delicious. The original recipe yields enough for 10 and it asked for 5 pounds of carrots, but I decided to use about 2 pounds of carrots because I was just cooking for my own family. You want to cut the carrots into quarters lengthwise and then into 2 to 3 inch pieces. So I kind of like quartered them down the middle, and then I spread them onto a sheet pan and tossed them with olive oil and seasoned salt and pepper. Then you want to bake these at 475 degrees for about 15 minutes, tossing them once or twice, and the carrots are going to be tender and brown along the edges when they're done. And while those are cooking, you want to make your dressing. Start with a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of white wine vinegar, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, a tablespoon of minced garlic, fresh rosemary if you have it, but you can just use dried. That's what I did. Same thing with thyme leaves, about a 1/2 teaspoon of each, and then a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. This is really a spectacular dressing that gives tons of flavor to this dish, and this is again something that I'm really going to consider putting on my Thanksgiving Christmas table. I might just have to have dinner parties all winter long because I have so many good recipes now. Like, these are all worth sharing. I need everyone to know about them. So yeah, you just drizzle on that dressing as you wish, and it is just phenomenal. For this one, we're gonna make pumpkin crunch cake. I'm gonna start with a can of pumpkin, mix in 1 can of evaporated milk, 3 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, and a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. You wanna mix that up really well. I feel like this one took the internet by storm last year, so I'm hoping I can kind of catch on the tail ends of it. So you wanna fill a 13 by 9 with parchment paper. There's like fancy ways to do this on the internet, but I haven't been able to figure it out. So we're gonna pour this in here. Then you want 1 package of yellow cake mix. Then you sprinkle that with 1 package of vanilla pudding mix. Then we're gonna put some chopped walnuts. And 1 cup of melted butter. Just like evenly sprinkle that over as much as you can. We're gonna bake this at 350 degrees for 50 to 60 minutes until it's like fully cooked through. And then once it's fully cooked, there's no jiggle to it. It's, comes out clean with a knife kind of thing. Although maybe it won't because it's kind of soft, but that's okay. You'll know when it's ready. Take it out, and then you're gonna let it cool. You want it to be 100% cool before you start putting the frosting on or anything like that. And then you just wanna flip it over. So I just pulled out my parchment paper and then flipped the actual cake over and peeled that off. It's a really satisfying experience. And then you can make the frosting. So that is 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese. You want to make sure it's softened so that you can kind of mix it up. 1 cup of powdered sugar and 3/4 of a cup of whipped topping. So like Cool Whip, or I just use the Aldi brand. And you just want to mix that with like a hand mixer, or you can use that in your regular mixer. And then you just slather that over the top. And that's why it's so important that the cake is actually cool. But this is incredible. It's amazing because the crunch is actually on the bottom. And the flavors, it's a very, very rich dish. So you probably only want to have like 1, bar. Hopefully, if you can keep yourself to that. And, but it's perfect for Thanksgiving or like a potluck this time of year. It's really, really fantastic. I can see why it's viral. We're going to get started with a really simple appetizer that everybody loves. Like this is, you can't stop eating it. Just so this spinach and artichoke dip is super simple. It's kind of a set it and forget it. You do want to chop up 1 can of quartered artichokes or whatever artichokes you have. Just make sure that they're drained off. Just want to chop them as small as you like. Like depends if you love big pieces of artichoke, go for bigger ones. If you want to see smaller ones, it's your choice. You can cut them up more. And then the same thing, we have spinach. I used fresh spinach and just slice that up kind of smaller, but you could also use frozen spinach and you just want to probably cook that in the microwave or thaw it out and then kind of squish some of the juices out because it's going to be too watery. So you want to make sure that all of that is gone. And then an onion, I just diced up or minced up 1 onion, and you could again cut that as small or as big as you like. If you don't like chunks of onion, just use a tablespoon of onion powder. That's going to taste really good in that. Or you could even use like the dried minced onion. I would do like 2 tablespoons of that, and that would be pretty good in here. So there's a lot of different options to kind of switch things in and out. 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese, and 1/2 cup of either Greek yogurt, or you can use sour cream. I just use sour cream. And then 4 tablespoons or teaspoons of minced garlic, and you could also use a couple teaspoons of garlic powder here. And 1 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese and about 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. I use like the shredded one just because I had got it on sale, but you could easily use the smaller grated like Kraft brand stuff. That's going to be fine too. And you can always switch in and out like different cheeses depending on what you have. I've done it with cheddar cheese before and it's been really good, so I wouldn't worry too much about exactly what type of cheese you're using. And then especially for Thanksgiving, you could mix this up and then start it whenever you're ready. I did forget you want to do a little salt and pepper there too. So you can put it back in the fridge or outside if it's cold enough, maybe in the garage, and then just start it 2.5 hours before you want to serve it and cook it on low. Or if you're in a rush and last minute, you can do it 1 hour on high and it comes out perfect. You just mix everything together. This is, fresh out of it. I just mixed everything, and once you mix it up, it becomes so creamy, so delicious. I served it with some tortilla chips, and I wish there was more of it, honestly. You can easily double this or triple this for a crowd, but it's such a treat and so easy. Something sweet, I wanted to share these candied cinnamon pecans. I actually made these at Christmas last year, but they would be fabulous for Thanksgiving as well. If you have ever been to the mall when they're roasting the nuts in the cart, or perhaps like a store, I know there's in Maine, there's something called Kittery Trading Post, and they always have the roasted nuts there. That smell is intoxicating, and tell me if you can't leave there without grabbing a bag of those nuts, and they're just so fantastic. Well, this is something you can do in your house and actually make them at home, especially wonderful for the holidays. You want to start out with a medium-sized bowl, and we're going to add in egg whites. It's going to be 1 large egg white and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then you want to whisk that until it's frothy, and that's going to take about 2 minutes. It's not going to be like super frothy like you're going to make a meringue or anything like that, but just a little bit frothy. And, you're going to be able to quit right before your hand starts to hurt, so that's super helpful because I do hate whisking things until I'm like, I can't do this any longer. It's not like that, just a couple minutes. And then you want to pour in 4 cups of pecan halves. I think you could also do that with walnuts. I think that would be delicious. So this ends up being great as something to make for a holiday party or even as gifts, because you can make it ahead of time and put them in bags, and they're just something so special that people can snack on, and they're a true homemade gift from the heart. So you just want to give that a good stir, and then we're going to add in 1 cup of sugar, a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and 5 teaspoons of cinnamon. Another reason I love this recipe is it's relatively simple. These are all things that I had on hand. The only thing that I had to buy was the pecans. So if you have the baking essentials, you can make these super quick and easy. You just want to give your crock pot a quick spray with some cooking spray. Pour in the pecan mixture and cook these on low for 3 hours. You do want to stir them about every hour, and then when the nuts are about a half hour away from the end, you're going to pour in a 1/4 cup of water. And just give them a good stir every time. Make sure they don't really get stuck to the sides. When mine were finished, I thought, I thought maybe I had overcooked them because the sides looked a little bit dark. But in fact, they were not overcooked at all. Every single piece of those pecans was delicious. When they're finished, you want to lay them flat on a baking sheet, and they're going to kind of dry out. It doesn't take very long at all. And you can see how crusted and coated these get. These are going to make your house smell amazing, and they could be perfect to kind of put in a little bowl when it comes time for sweets, especially if people are kind of full. This is the perfect little salty sweet treat to snack on. This is another super simple one, bacon, green beans. This is a great side. I almost think of the Crockpot kind of like my third arm sometimes, just something to kind of take something off my plate while I'm cooking everything else. For this, I am using the good chopped bacon. Any thick cut bacon will do, but this is particularly good. So you just want to cut your bacon into small bite-sized pieces. So you also need 1 small diced onion, and then we're going to saute that onion with the bacon until that bacon is crispy and the onion is translucent. And then you want to pour about 1 pound of fresh green beans into the bottom of your slow cooker. You could also use a couple of pounds depending on how many people you're cooking for. So I did a kind of a bacon heavy green beans, but you really don't need to. And then you want 1.5 cups of chicken broth, or you could use chicken bouillon here, whatever you have on hand. I happen to have the rest of some chicken broth on hand from Thanksgiving, so it was perfect. Then about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm not going to add any salt to this dish because the bacon is already pretty salty itself. And then pour the onion and the bacon right into the green beans, and make sure to get all the fat with it too, because that is absolutely delicious and it's part of what's gonna make this taste so good once it cooks together. And then you want to cook it on low for 6 hours or high for 3 hours. It really does take about 3 hours for those green beans to get fully cooked, even if you're cooking on high. I know a lot of times I cut down my times, but it did take that long for these. And they're so good. There's so much flavor in this. I mean, where can you go wrong with bacon and onion and green beans? It's really fantastic, and it's a really great side dish that you did the work in the beginning and then you just set it and forget it. We're starting off with the barbecued little smokies, and these guys in the Crockpot never disappoint. I decided to make this recipe for multiple reasons, but one of them is that I found some of these little tiny hot dogs on sale at Aldi, and I threw them in my freezer a while back, and I figured this was a great opportunity to use them. So when you see that stuff like that on sale, go ahead and grab it, and then you can use it later as an appetizer idea. Or you can even do like the pigs in a blanket if you want to. With this recipe, we're using 1/2 cup of brown sugar and then 1/2 cup of ketchup. And we're going to use 1.5 cups of barbecue sauce. This is also a great way to use up the last of that barbecue sauce that you have in those containers. For spices, you want to add 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then add in your package of little tiny hot dogs. You could always use 2 hot dogs in this, 2 packages in this. There's enough sauce in it. I just only had 1. And another good option here is to add sliced kielbasa. So if you have sliced kielbasa, that would also work. And then you just want to cook these on low for at least 2 hours. You can actually cook them a little bit longer if you have the time. Sometimes it actually helps to put things, away, like make sure that you already got it taken care of earlier and just set it and forget it. So this is a great option for that. And these turned out amazing. So these are going to be the perfect appetizer for a Thanksgiving or any holiday meal, really. And they are going to impress people. People always love them. They're just like a nice thing. They're easy for picky eaters, right? My kids love them. And it's going to take minimal effort on your part. Next up, I've got an apple pear crisp, which is basically like a pie alternative, and it will really make you happy. This is so delicious. I'm just going to get started by making the topping. So I'm chopping 1/2 cup of pecans. Just want to place those in a bowl and add 3/4 cup of flour, 3/4 cup of old-fashioned oats, 1/3 cup of light brown sugar, and 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter cut into cubes. And then I'm just going to mix it together to make a crumble topping. So I decided to kind of cut mine in with a pastry cutter, but I did eventually just get in there with my hands because it was a lot easier to do that way. So I think it just depends on what type of thing you're making and when the pastry cutter is going to be the best. I also forgot to add cinnamon to that, so you also want to add 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. I did add it later. And then I just want to peel and slice 4 apples and 4 pears. I'm adding those right to the bottom of my crock pot. And to those, you want to add 1/3 cup of brown sugar, a tablespoon of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. You can do a pinch of nutmeg if you'd like to, and then a tablespoon of lemon juice. You also want to add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. There is something about the salt and cinnamon when I'm baking. I often forget to add both of those things. And I'm like, why would I do that? Those things are so important. But I do remember to, but it's like after the fact. It's so weird. And then you just want to add that topping right over the top of this. And then when you cook this in the crock pot, you do want to put a paper towel over the top. And I think that helps kind of keep the crumb topping from, getting too soft or something. You want to cook this for about 2 to 3 hours on low or 90 minutes on high. I did mine 90 minutes on high and it was perfect. I feel like it's going to be good when it's bubbling like that. Anything that's bubbling like that, it's going to be delicious. That's my official statement. That is how you know if food is good. And so serve this to the family, but this is going to be a great one for Thanksgiving where you want to do something a little bit different than a pie. And it's also great for like last minute because you can do it in 90 minutes. So and it's just sitting there on the counter. Obviously, you don't have to be doing anything active. Your non-active cooking only takes 90 minutes, which is great because if you're like cooking a turkey and you're like, oh, the pie, if you don't do the pies ahead of time, if you don't get those done like the night before or in the morning, it's all over. You can't do it. So obviously great with ice cream or whipped cream, but really just a fabulous recipe. Next up is Crockpot loaded potatoes, and we're trying something different here, something kind of outside of the norm of the mashed potato. These are also going to be great for really any holiday meal or just a regular weeknight because they're just delicious. So if you're set on the mashed potatoes, I totally get it, but this is still a great recipe and again, something new to try. So I'm just going to dice up about 2 pounds of yellow potatoes here, but you could also use red potatoes. Both would be really good in this. And then you want to put half of them in the bottom of the crock pot. If you have aluminum foil, you actually want to use that to line the crock pot and then make a packet out of it. And I unfortunately did not, so I just used a crock pot liner, but it still didn't really make the packet, but it turned out fine. So I would be interested to see how good it was if the foil had made like the foil packet in there, but they were still delicious. So I'm not sure what the difference would have been. Then you're going to want a 1/4 cup of green onions or scallions, same thing. And then you're going to want about 8 slices of crispy bacon. So I had just cooked mine up on the side. I usually do the microwave when I'm cooking bacon like this just for something that's going to be like in something. So I cooked that for 4 minutes for 4 slices. And then I just did another piece with 4 minutes for 4 slices. And then you could also use bacon bits for this. I think that would turn out really, really well. And then if you didn't have scallions, I also think more alternatives, right? More alternatives would be to use sliced red onions. That would also be good in this. So we're just going to take the 4 slices that I sliced up of bacon and put those right over those uncooked potatoes there. Then we're going to add in our scallions, about half of the scallions. I just want to liberally add in some seasoned salt, whatever your favorite is, or whatever you have on hand. And then add 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. Then you want to add the remaining potatoes to the crock pot. It's kind of like a nacho setup here. So we're going to have layers, which is so important and why this is so delicious when you do it like this. And then 4 more slices of crumbled bacon, or again, bacon bits. Not quite the rest of the scallions. So you do want to take about a couple tablespoons of those and leave them off to the side. And then you want to add another 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese right over the top. I cooked mine on high for about 3 hours and my potatoes were perfectly done. At that point, I added the rest of the scallions, and I forgot I actually added 1 more slice of crispy bacon kind of over the top. And these were so beautiful, so different and delicious. I think they would be good on any Thanksgiving table. It would certainly wow people with something that is kind of out of the ordinary. Next up are these honey butter thyme glazed carrots, and these are so easy to make, but they are so full of flavor. I'm going to start with 1.5 pounds of carrots. We're peeling, trimming, and cutting them into quarters and 1.5-inch slices. You want to place that in the crock pot with 4 tablespoons of butter cubed, 4 tablespoons of honey, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. We're going to cook those for 3 hours on high until the carrots are tender. And you can see how well this cooked the carrots. It didn't overcook them. It didn't undercook them. They were perfect. My husband hates like a glazed carrot with like the brown sugar and stuff like that. So I really wanted to go a different route with this. And I was so pleased with how these turned out because they were just enough with that honey, but the thyme and the salt kind of gave it a kind of really balanced it out. So it really wasn't too sweet. And they were really just fantastic. So this is something I will definitely make again. And this is something that would be more than appreciated on your Thanksgiving table. This next one is a family favorite. It's a baked brie, and I'll explain at the end kind of why that top is a little bit brown, and generally it won't be, but this was kind of an interesting circumstance. So you're gonna need 1 sheet of defrosted puff pastry. You can find Pillsbury puff pastry sheets in the freezer section, and then you just follow the instructions. It just says take it out and leave it on the counter for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then just to make mine festive, I have these little cookie cutters. So if you're doing this for Thanksgiving, you can use tiny leaf cookie cutters. If you're doing it for Christmas, you could do something more Christmas themed. Really any time of year you can make something look a little bit cute, or you don't have to do this at all. This is just something extra, something fun. And I'm gonna show you a little secret here too. So I actually already had some of this brie. We broke into it. But even if we were bringing this to a friend's, right, we cut out that piece, no one's gonna know that part of that brie is missing. You're actually just making it right back into a ball there. And then on top of that brie, you just want to put a generous helping of, I used raspberry jam, but you could also use fig jam. You could use blueberry jam, whatever your favorite jam is that you have on hand. Maybe you don't want to go out and buy something, that's totally fine. You just put a nice big generous scoop right over the top of the cheese. And then we're just going to take the pastry and kind of fold it over. And so you just kind of fold it over itself so that it makes this circle around it. I had accidentally folded mine up before I put the jam on it first. So this recipe is very forgiving. And then you just kind of tighten it up there. And then I'm just going to put these two little leaf things right on top. And that's it. Like, it's super simple. You really can't screw it up. That's the nice thing about it. Like, it looks fancy, but you didn't have to do a lot of work. And then I put mine on parchment paper on top of a baking sheet, and I actually brought mine to a friend's house, and it turned out their oven was broken. So we had to use the toaster oven, which is why the top of this ended up being black. But you want to cook it at 350 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. Definitely check on it as it goes. You want to make sure that it's fully cooked, all that puff pastry is cooked through, and that inside that brie is going to be really melty and delicious. So you'll notice a few Halloween things because this was a Halloween adventure, but generally, you want to serve that at your Thanksgiving feast, and you shouldn't have the black on top because it's not going to be cooked in a little mini toaster oven. And then you can just serve it with either some crackers or some bread. I like to do some sliced up fresh, like French or Parisian loaf bread, and it is absolutely delicious. Like, I had people who had to leave, and they're like, I'm going to stay until the baked brie's done because I got to get a bite. It's that good. So if you've never made this before, you got to give it a shot and surprise your family and friends. All right, next up is a super low ingredient spinach dip with bacon, and you're going to be shocked at how delicious this is. Once I made it, I was like, why do we not put bacon on all the dips? Just put bacon on all the dips. So I heard this method, I don't even remember where, someone shared this method of defrosting spinach, and I thought it was genius. I loved it. So we're just going to take our frozen spinach. You can use kind of as much or as little as you want. I think use like half a bag of like 12 ounces, and then rinse it with hot water. And then you can really, and you can, lose your strainer at the same time, but you can really push all the water out of that and really drain it really well. And then you can cook your bacon, or you can just use like bacon bits, but in something like this, fresh cooked bacon is going to be pretty prime. So if you have some bacon on hand, go ahead and use that. I think pancetta would be also good with it. But back to that spinach. I love that method because then you don't have to heat it up. It's not like super hot on your hands when you're trying to wring it out. And you have to, we don't have extra time for that. So just by washing it with warm water, it just defrosted for me right away, which was super nice. And then we're going to grab, a cup or two of Greek yogurt. This one is super relaxed. And if you do have or don't have things on hand, it's going to be fine. And you could use sour cream too if you have sour cream. And then we're just going to add the wrung out, if that's the right word, spinach to that, and going to grate in 2 cloves of garlic. And if you don't have fresh garlic, go ahead and use a couple teaspoons of garlic powder to taste. You can kind of taste it, see how it turns out. But that fresh garlic does add a ton of flavor, and garlic's always one of those things you can get really cheap. Just keep it on hand, and it's going to give flavor to all of your food. And then add a sprinkle of your favorite seasoned salt. I'm using Auntie No-No's, and always just give it a taste as you go. Mix it up, see what you think. If you need to add something, then go ahead. I think a squirt of lemon in this would be really, really good too, but I didn't have any, so I didn't add it. And then we're just going to put it in a dip bowl and cover it with that crumbled bacon. And I was even saying that if you could do 2 layers, do a layer of the spinach dip and then put a layer of bacon in the middle, and then put the spinach dip on top of it again, and then put a layer of bacon on top. I like that idea a lot. I don't really like the idea of mixing the bacon in with it because I just feel like it would get soggy. You kind of want it to be that crumbly, that topping on it. But the 2 layers, I think I'm down with. I think if I was going to do it again, I would do 2 layers of bacon in between the dip. This one is so simple and such a crowd pleaser. I love it, and it tastes so good. Just serve it with some tortilla chips or maybe some pita chips. And my husband loved it. We were in awe. It was so good. And now I want to make little pumpkin rolls that are going to go with the meal. Start with 1 cup of warm water and a tablespoon of our yeast, a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then 3 1/4 cups of flour. We're gonna mix this together really well with that dough hook and make sure that it's coming off the sides of the bowl. And then you're gonna knead it inside the bowl for another 2 to 4 minutes. And I usually put it on medium when I do this. And sometimes it's kind of hard for the mixer to kind of handle it because it's kind of a tougher dough and it's really kneading it like you would do with your hands. So that's okay if your mixer's struggling a little bit. That's normal. You just want it to be that really soft, and it's almost like it gets like smooth and silky at the end once it's kneaded for long enough. So if you're kind of a more experienced baker, or you get to baking bread a few more times, you'll start to see that it's almost like a shine that kind of comes across the dough, and that's how you know that the dough is ready. But really, like about 4 minutes is going to be plenty of time to beat that or mix it with the dough hook. So I'm doing the same thing with this one, just oiling down a bowl. I made it into a nice little ball, and I'm gonna set it outside because it's nice and warm. Now we're gonna make our pumpkin dinner rolls. So you really wanna push out the air in this, so it's kind of like punch it down. And we're gonna cut this into 12 portions, but we're also gonna take a little portion off to the side because we're gonna use that to make stems for the pumpkins. So I'm just kind of stealing this. Put this to get back together. And if I do half and then 6 on each side, I should get 12 portions. Similar to what I do with a sourdough, I'm just kind of pulling everything under and then shaping it in my hands. And then I'm gonna place these on a baking sheet. So just gonna let these sit for 15 minutes, so cover them up. And then with that little piece that I had reserved to the side, I just made kind of like a long rope with that and then cut it into 12 pieces. Those are all just going to be the little tops to the pumpkins. So it's kind of an important piece. It's super cute and just super easy just to dice it up into 12 pieces and put it on the baking sheet with the balls. Okay, I have 12 strings here. This is like kitchen twine, and I cut them hopefully long enough that they're going to be able to go around each pumpkin twice. So we're just gonna actually, get our fingers in here. We've got some olive oil, whatever type of oil you want, but you wanna oil these so that they don't stick to the pumpkin. And so now they should be all set. So once our 15 minutes is up, we'll start wrapping the pumpkins up. So we have these all set up. We have our strings. Oh yeah. Fabulous. And your fingers are gonna get a little oily. As with baking, these things happen. Try your best to get it even, but you know, is what it is. Pretty cute. I think it's gonna puff right out. It's gonna do exactly what I'm hoping that it does. I think it's true what they say about finding your passion. I mean, you have to love it. So this is tedious. If you don't love it, if you're not gonna be so excited and proud and you're gonna be stressed out about doing it, then don't do it. You know, I really don't recommend that you do a more tedious baking project like this. Sorry, we got Ben in the background, but if you don't care deeply, about what you're doing, because you can just buy rolls at Walmart and they're going to be fabulous. They're going to be fabulous. So in go my little dinner pumpkins. We're cooking these 22 to 25 minutes. It's a little steamy, so it's hard to see, but these are perfectly golden and beautiful. Holy moly. I am going to take some of our, you can either use butter, use oil, or you can use the margarine that we bought to just brush over these and make them nice and golden and beautiful. Okay, I also realized that I need to cut the strings off. We can't serve them like that. For this one, we're making the simplest roasted butternut squash. And this is the perfect addition to your Thanksgiving meal. And it's amazingly flavorful for how easy and simple it is. And it's great because you can actually cut all this up and kind of make it ahead of time and then just roast it at the last minute. So you want to start with one butternut squash. I always like to cut mine down the middle. I'm always looking for ways to take something that is not going to sit flat and give it a flat edge so that it can sit flat and it'll be easier for me to cut. So once I cut it down the middle like that, I like to cut the skin off the sides. And then I just cut the, like that bulbous part in half so that we can see the seeds in there, and cut off the bottom too so that there's just really no skin left. And then once you cut it in half, you can get to those seeds and we can eventually just scoop them out with a spoon. And then I do the same thing with the long part. You just cut the top off there so that we have two flat sides, and then we can just cut off all the skin from the sides. And then from there, you just want to try as much as you can to cut them into evenly sized, about 1/4 inch pieces. So I'm thinking about like when you get home fries at a breakfast restaurant, that's about the size that you want to cut these up into. And so I like to just kind of cut it down the middle and then cut both sides so that I can see and make everything as even as possible. And then again, I get to leave those flat on that flat side and then cut them again so that they're again in even parts. And then you just want to place those into a bowl. And once everything is in a bowl, all the pieces that you need, you just want to douse that in some olive oil, about a tablespoon, and then a sprinkle of salt, a sprinkle of pepper, and a sprinkle of garlic powder, probably a 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of each. You can kind of measure with your heart on this because it's a pretty relaxed recipe. And then you want to take either a lined baking sheet or you can spray it down and evenly place all of the pieces of butternut squash. You want to make sure they're in a single layer so like none of them are laying on top of each other. And then we're just going to bake this at 400 degrees for about 25 to 35 minutes. And halfway through, you do want to make sure that you're flipping those and moving them so that they get cooked on both sides. Definitely check it at the 25-minute mark. You don't want to overcook them by any means, and it's kind of depend on the size that you cut them into. Some of the smaller pieces might cook faster, but I found about 27 minutes, and mine were perfectly cooked through, and they weren't even like brown, but they were just like perfectly cooked, and they were actually just so incredible. It's sometimes the simpler things, sometimes like keep it simple, stupid, right? It works. And in this case, that is one of those recipes where you're getting all the flavors of the squash. You're not mucking it up with too much other stuff, and it's really delicious. Now, these chive spashed potatoes were probably the best mashed potatoes I have ever made and had, so they definitely deserve a spot on your holiday table. And we're just going to start off by chopping some scallions, or if you have chives, you can use those. I just had some scallions, and I kind of always switch those out interchangeably. Again, we're just using what we have on hand, make things easier on ourselves. And this one is great because we're also going to use like kind of a convenience item to make them. So one thing I did to make things easier on myself was just get the really small red potatoes so we don't have to peel them or anything. You can use any of the like tiny creamer potatoes. And if you want to save money, get the bigger ones and cut those up. That's going to be fine. Potatoes are also something I feel like most people have on hand at most times. And then we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of butter and a 1/4 cup of half and half for cream or milk. I think I just used milk because that's what I had on hand. And then 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon. So that chicken bouillon is going to give it tons of flavor. And then we're also going to add in an 8-ounce container of chive and onion cream cheese. And this is what gives it all of the flavor, all of the amazingness, everything that is going to make everyone go, oh my goodness, these were the best potatoes I've ever had. It's just in the cream cheese. So you don't have to add like a ton of stuff. Just buy that at the store. It's the same price as that regular cream cheese, and it's delicious. And then just add a pinch of salt. Do salt to taste on your mashed potatoes. It's always like if you feel like your mashed potatoes like aren't quite there, it's usually salt because potatoes absorb a ton of salt. And mash them up. I kind of forgot to get that part on camera, but mix it all together. Give it a good mash. Use your favorite method if you want to use like a potato ricer, or if you want to use a handheld mixer, you can do that. And then I just put mine in a casserole dish, and they're super easy to reheat in the oven, especially with a little bit of foil over the top, and put those scallions on or chives at the last minute. And yeah, that was a fast one because it's not a ton of ingredients. It's super easy. So if you're at the store, like grab yourself some chive and onion cream cheese and you can make these happen. For this one, we're going to make an amazing apple caramel cheesecake. This is some work to make, but totally worth it for Thanksgiving. We're gonna start by peeling and slicing 4 apples. I happen to have some Granny Smiths, but you can use whatever.
Apple tastes like apple.
Yeah, yummy, right?
Yeah.
Then you want to melt about 5 tablespoons, maybe a little more of butter over medium heat. You want to add in all of the apples and then 1/3 cup of brown sugar, as well as 1 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're just going to cook this down for about 10 minutes. You want to make sure apples are soft. Then we're going to make our graham cracker crust. You do want a cheesecake pan here, especially on this one because it's going to be pretty tall because we're going to put a layer of those apples inside. So you want a spring form cheesecake pan. I've had this one for years. I have one down in my Amazon store. If you want to grab one, totally worth it, especially because once you make this, you're probably going to want to make it year after year, so you're going to need this. So you're going to need about 3 cups of crushed graham crackers. You can buy graham cracker crumbs. I happen to have these leftover ones. These are like Whole Foods ones, so they look a little funky, but I'm sure they'll taste just fine. So to your crumbs, you just want to add a cup of melted butter. Give these a good mix, and then we're just going to press these into the bottom of your springform pan. Smells amazing. So we're just going to bake this crust at 350 degrees for 10 minutes. And then these are pretty soft at this point. This is actually kind of a thick sauce, but if you think about it, we're gonna put this in the middle of the cheesecake, so I really don't want it to run everywhere. So I'm just gonna add a quick slurry of 2 teaspoons of cornstarch and 2 teaspoons of water. And you can see this is really quickly thickening this up. Yeah. You see how that's like getting like all gelatized? That's when you know. So we're just gonna put this in the fridge. So when this does come out, you want to wait for it to cool down before we make the filling. So this is definitely a day before event. So we're waiting for those apples to cool down, and then we're just waiting for the crust to cool down. And at this time, you probably want to take out your cream cheese and your sour cream and your eggs, because everything is going to work best in this recipe at room temperature. All right, I'm ready to make the filling. So you need 4 8-ounce containers, so 32 ounces of cream cheese for this, which makes sense because this is a cheesecake. We're gonna mix that in a stand mixer until it's like completely creamy. Just the cream cheese, that's gotta be either softened or at room temperature. I have all my stuff at room temperature. Once it's fully mixed, you wanna add 1.5 cups of sugar, and again, fully mix that. And then we're gonna add 4 room temperature eggs. And then once that's all mixed, you want to add in 1 cup of room temperature sour cream. Funny little story, I opened up my sour cream and it was moldy. So I had to run down to the store near me, which I don't have time for right now. So imagine it's Thanksgiving and your sour cream's moldy. So I guess double check ahead of time. I ended up grabbing some. Still nervous, like I couldn't open it in the store. They had 2 of them. They expire in like 5 days. Is it gonna be moldy? Let's hope not. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So we're gonna give it like a little bit of that fall flavor, that apple flavor with some cinnamon and nutmeg. All right, we're ready for some fun here. We're gonna pour half of the cream cheese, cheesecake filling mixture into the pan, then cover that with your apple mixture that's now chilled, and then pour the rest of the cream cheese mixture on top. All right, so once we put this in here, I'm trying to make this as upright as possible. Ideally, you might want like a 10-inch, like a larger pie pan to go around here. And then you put that right in here, and then we have some hot boiled water, and you put that underneath. You can also do another pan, just do a pan and then put this on the second rack. It's not as ideal as kind of like almost putting it in here. This is gonna make it super creamy. So I was like, well, this will work because I have a smaller pan and then a larger pan. There is an old school method of putting some, tinfoil around the bottom of this and then putting that in there, it's not gonna guarantee that it's not gonna, get in there and kind of make the bottom moist, which we really don't want. So I'm not gonna do that. I won't recommend it. I would rather put a pan with water on the bottom rack there and then put this directly on this rack and then do that other method. You wanna be so incredibly careful with this. But we have faith, right? Look at that. Beautiful. So now we're gonna cook this for an hour and a half to an hour and 50 minutes. So you really wanna make sure that on the edges, it's not gonna come like, it's not gonna be like a cake like where you insert something and it's gonna come out completely cooked through. But you want it to kind of be barely there. And we'll see when it's done and we'll talk about it, what it looks like. So with this one, it's totally okay that it gets brown on the top because we're gonna cover the top up anyway. You can see that it's jiggly still. But it's starting to kind of peel up. I'm just gonna turn the oven off now. It's been about an hour and 30 minutes. And we're gonna let it sit in the oven for 1 more hour with it like partially open. All right, this has been sitting in the fridge and I'm finally opening her up. This is very exciting. I do just wanna go around the edges. I'm gonna cut this off. So to make the topping, I should have just made it all at once, but right now I'm currently cooking more apples the exact same way. So I'm not gonna show you again that I cooked the apples for the filling. So we're just gonna make some more of those and put those on the top. This is exciting. It's also great because we can taste it. I mean, I don't know how it couldn't be good because everything we put in it, but we wanna be sure, Now we're gonna make the crumble topping. We're gonna line a sheet pan with some parchment paper. We're gonna mix a 1/4 cup of flour with a 1/2 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just gonna use a pastry cutter to cut in a 1/4 cup of cold salted butter. And this is gonna make like a crumbly, dry mixture. We're gonna spread that right over a lined sheet pan with parchment paper, or you could, use whatever you have. So we're gonna make the caramel sauce. You want a cup of sugar. We're gonna stir this over medium heat, and at first it's gonna seem like nothing is happening, but then it's gonna actually turn brown and liquefy, and you wanna cook it until it's fully liquefied. Once it's fully liquefied, we're gonna add in 6 tablespoons of salted butter. And you just wanna keep stirring that while that butter melts right into the caramel sauce. And as soon as that butter is done melting, you would take that off the heat and pour in a 1/2 cup of heavy cream and do that kind of slowly while you're whisking. I had my husband help me because I was like, I can't hold this and pour this and whisk. And it's hot, right? So he was like, oh, it's gonna burn me. He was all right. He was strong. He could handle it. But it's a little bit of a process once you add that in. And then you just want to put that back on the stove for just a minute or two, whisking constantly. We're trying to get any little bits out of it. And then you take it off the heat and let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. And then to finish this beautiful cheesecake up, you just want to pour the rest of the apples that you just made over the top. They should be cooled. Then the crumble. So you've got that crunchy stuff, and then just top it off with a drizzle of the salted caramel sauce. You totally don't have to go through the effort of making the caramel sauce too. You can very easily just buy some at the store that is just as delicious, or, I mean, maybe your homemade is a little more delicious, but it's going in with all the cheesecake. So if you're trying to save yourself a step, that is where to save the step. So I served this at a family party. I had people coming up to me saying this is the creamiest, most delicious cheesecake they have ever eaten. It certainly is hearty, like one slice, and you've probably had your calories for the week, but that's okay because if we're serving this at Thanksgiving or even Christmas, that is the one time when I think it's okay to have a little bit of extra indulgence. But this is absolutely gorgeous. It is sure to be a showstopper. So this is certain to be a new tradition in your household. We're making a cannoli pie. And we're just gonna start by par baking a pie crust. You can definitely make your own if you have like a favorite. we're just gonna go the easy method because this is a kind of involved pie anyway. So if you're making it for a holiday, you're gonna wanna make it the day before. But I know, you know, holidays are special and this is a time to try something new and do something a little bit more involved because it's fun and it's delicious. So I have one in here. This is, it said apple pie in it, but no one will see that. You know, I'd love to get like a cute little crust going, but because this is a deep dish, it's probably not really gonna look like that. Another alternative is to just buy, either use a smaller pie pan or buy one that's like in the freezer section that is already made, because those have really cute crusts. And I'm sure that would look really good with this. But I think we'll be able to cover up any crust issues we have, like if it doesn't look super cute on the edges, with some whipped cream. So, not mad. I'm just going through with a fork with this. And I'm just following the Pillsbury instructions. It's 450 degrees for, I think it's like 10 minutes. Now I gotta look back at the package, but I think it's like 10 minutes. So to make the filling, you wanna use either a stand mixer or a hand mixer. I'm just gonna use the stand mixer because it's gonna be a little bit easier for me. And then add 2 8-ounce packages of cream cheese. You wanna make sure that those are like room temperature or slightly softened. 1 cup of ricotta cheese, 1.5 cups of heavy cream, 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. You can do a teaspoon of orange zest if you'd like. I don't really like mine with orange, so I'm not gonna do that. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're gonna beat that for like 4 to 5 minutes until like super fluffy. So this is what the peaks look like. You can see that it's like, almost made it like whipped cream. It tastes incredible. It literally tastes like, yeah, a cannoli, but like a cannoli cake, like a cannoli cheesecake maybe. There's no egg in this, so we can just like lick it up. Yes. Gonna add in these mini chocolate chips. Crust is completely cooled. You don't want to have it be hot at all. Mine is cooled for like an hour, so we're good. And then just put all of this pie filling inside of here. It's a lot. So now we're gonna make the ganache. We need a cup of the mini chocolate chips, or I mean any chocolate chips will do. And you wanna put it in a microwave safe bowl. And then 3 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. And we're just gonna microwave this for 45 seconds. Give it a stir. And you can totally do 15-second intervals, but I was surprised that this just cooked right down in 45 seconds. Because once you mix it really well, it makes this beautiful ganache. And so when it's perfect, you're gonna see it's like this beautiful, silky ganache. Chocolate cream to put on the pie. So I took this out of the fridge after 2 hours, and I'm just gonna spread the ganache over the top. And we're gonna wanna put this back in the fridge for roughly 2 hours again. It's tough because this like hardens really fast. So you just wanna be as careful as possible about not getting some of the cream from below. And you don't really have to cover all the way to the edge because we're gonna put some whipped cream on that at the end. So just don't worry about it too much. All right, now we're gonna make the whipped cream. So I have a cup. You can use up to 1.5 cups. Actually, that's probably just about what I have, which is nice. 1.5 cups of whipped cream. You do wanna use like a beater like this on this. I do also have like a hand one that works really well for whipped cream, so that's nice. It's definitely an option. Hand stirring it, not recommended. It would take forever. So I'm gonna beat this until soft peaks form, and then I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of powdered sugar until stiff peaks form. So if you don't have a pastry tip or a piping bag, that's perfectly okay. You can just kind of spoon this on the outside of the pie and kind of in the middle, and it'll still taste amazing. I did have a pastry tip, but I couldn't find any in my pastry bag, so I need to remind myself to grab some. They even have a pastry kit at the Dollar Tree, so for $1.25, you can be decorating like a god or goddess. So, you know, you can grab one of those. I just used a Ziploc bag with my pastry tip, so I cut the corner of it, and then I just taped it in there, and it worked out really well. So if you have a tip but you don't have a bag, you can always use a gallon bag. And then I just went around the edge and made little flowers with it. And then with the rest of it, I just took it and I plopped it right in the middle of the pie. And so you could probably make that look a little prettier if you wanted to, but I kind of liked the idea of just kind of putting it on there, like a nice big pillowy bunch of it. And then you totally don't have to do this. You can just sprinkle on some mini chocolate chips. But if you'd like to make it really special and really impress, especially if you're serving this at Thanksgiving, get 3 to 4 mini chocolate chip cannolis and then put those right on top. And right on top of that whipped cream like that, I mean, it's seriously beautiful. Who wouldn't want to slice this, really? And I serve this at, if you remember, you've been with me for a while, I do some lunches with my mother and grandmother, and little Benny's there too. And so I just serve that at that lunch. We call it wine lunch because we have some wine. And we just had an amazing time. It was so delicious. Something really special. My mom had texted me after because she had hers a little bit later. And she was like, oh my goodness, this is really special. This might be better than cheesecake. That's a lot saying it's better than cheesecake. I agree. I thought it was really phenomenal, and I'll be making it again and again. Now, I feel like sliders are all the rage right now, so we had to do leftover sliders, and they were heavenly. Now, the key to these is always the topping that you put over those delicious Hawaiian rolls. So you want to microwave a combination of 3 tablespoons of butter, 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, and 1 teaspoon of everything bagel seasoning. And you want to microwave that for about a minute just till your butter is melted and kind of everything is mixed together. Then you want 1 12-ounce package of Hawaiian rolls, and you want to slice those in half. Place them in a 13 by 9 pan. Top them with leftover turkey, cranberry sauce, and cheddar cheese. You could probably use Monterey Jack here as well. Brush your microwaved butter mixture right over the top of those rolls. This is what makes it taste so amazing. Then go ahead and sprinkle some more everything bagel seasoning on there because you really can't go wrong. You're going to cover this with foil and bake at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. Then take that cover off and bake for an additional 5 minutes. And look how good these look. I am just so excited that these little sliders became so popular. I feel like mine did get a little bit browned on the top because I did get distracted and leave them in for a little bit longer than I maybe should have. But the crispy, crunchy top was actually quite good. So your choice on how you want to cook them. And I just sliced them up. I put them on a tray and we just dug in and devoured them faster than I would like to admit. But this was a really great thing to do with leftovers, and I can't wait to do it again. I want to thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a fabulous Thanksgiving. If you want to keep the inspiration going, click on this next video.